you have to ask a couple things at first. So from optimization problem, we may not derive the equation, we'll assume that you do remember from your micro to class, But from optimization problem, usually, cost minimization problem, right? Or output maximization, right? But either one give you the same kind of concepts, give you the same benchmark for decision making. You pretty much follow the same analogy for either the cost minimization or output maximization. You have the same first order conditions. But first of all, the thing that we normally do when we talk about firm problems, and we say that, well, there are two types of input for firm. We have capital and we have labor, right? In this case, it's hours of employment, and how many hours a worker put in to the production, right? We have to talk about long run and short run. At least they like to talk about long run and short run when they do microeconomics too. And the first thing they do is that they say that in short run, capital tend to be fixed, right? As if there's only labor that you need to worry about, hiring more or hiring less labor, but capital remain the same. So in short run, you cannot adjust capital, and it's not as freely, So only level that is adjustable. Worry about the hiring decisions, thinking about the labor, how many hours, they should hire people. That's pretty much it. So the thing that they would consider, or the thing that they would need to think about is the relationship between, first of all, the relationship between output and labor, right? Or employment, let's say. I already changed it to employment and to keep using the word employment instead. So first of all, firm need to worry about hiring, how many employment they would like to use in the productions, and the level of output will vary depend on the level of employment, right? How many hours you put in, you can find the relationship of, let's say, output, number of like units, right? And then workers. The textbook kind of switch back into like using like labor each, but let's say that I will keep with the same analogy and I will use hours, which is fine. Doesn't really make much of the difference in terms of the analysis, Just make the difference in terms of when you talk about it. But let's say So we look at hours of work, instead of the worker. Or you can say it's hours that the worker spent, working on the project. And you have the output, total product, usually looking something along the line like this. The somewhat S-shaped curve each. Which in itself is not very interesting for economists. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, fine, total output, so what? Because you cannot really analyze much in the total output functions. You tend to move to something slightly more interesting. That is marginal product and average product of labor. Of looking at the return that you receive from using one more unit of the input, right? In this case, if you hire or if you try to get one more hours, in the production, what would be the additional output that you can produce because of that, right? So if you do it like this, you have something that looks like the marginal product, and let me call it NP. So you can have that, something similar to that, And you can write another thing which is average product, right? Average product will look something like so that's the average product. We go first up here, we will talk about hours. In a little bit, when we do other analysis, we will kind of revert back to the labor terminologies, and that would be per person. Although, to be exact, if you change from hours of employment to number of workers, the graph looks the same. It's just that the numbering on the x and y axis will change, but the graph looks identical, It's always look like this anyway, marginal product, of one input. When you keep the other input fixed, you will see that the highest point of average product is right here. When you have average product and marginal product intersect, right, one another, So why is that the case? Well, technically, what is the average product? Well, this is a repetition to your microeconomics too, I'm sorry. What is your average product? Let's write it as an ABP. Average product is equal to output rate divided by input rate, divided by E. And marginal product will be the change in output. When you So that's a change in output when you add one more E. You know, average product tell on average what is the contribution of one E, one input, one unit of input, on the overall production. The average contribution is it like per person. Well, if you do per person, it will be like per person how many units one person can make. If you do hours, it will tell that like each out for 1 hour, on average how many products can be made, in 1 hour. So that's kind of like on average, right? But if you add, if you look at marginal products, if you add one more person or if you add one more hours to the production, the contribution to the output would be marginal product, right? If the contribution of the output, of that additional unit is higher than the average product to begin with, let's say, which is like the area right here, right? Here up to this point, This is when marginal product is higher than average product, It means that the additional workers, or additional hours that you put into the production actually contribute more than average or more than before, on average before. So you can increase the average value because of that, because the additional worker can work and create product more than the worker that you have before done on average. Let's say like if you have, let's say 10 workers before, right? And 10 workers can produce, let's say 50 units in total, right? So it means that each worker only makes 5, right? Let's say that if your marginal product of additional worker, the new one is 6. The new person that you hire can produce 6 units. So it will improve the average product, right? Because he can do better than the average of the first 10. The 11th one can do 6. So the average will increase because marginal product is higher than the average product. So you will have increasing average product as long as you have marginal product higher than average product. However, when you reach the point when it starts to be the fact that marginal product is lower, let's say you're 15 workers, when you go up to, let's say the 14 one, like 14 workers can produce, let's say 6.5, per workers, right? But you're 15, the next one that you hire, can only produce 6. That's less than 6.5, right? So the additional one that you hire actually produce less than the average before. So your average will now start to decrease, because the new one is not, it's kind of like dragging down the rest of the group, to be exact. You can think of the new one dragging down the rest of the group. So now the average will be coming down. So that's when you have, well, that's why you have the highest point of average product being when you intersect, when the marginal product intersect with the or technically cut across, the average product. Because after that, it's a situation when your marginal product is less than your average product. So your average product can only go down. It can't go up anymore because the additional contribution to the output, the additional input doesn't add as much as the units before anymore. So you have that to be like this. So by the way, that's kind of help you with the hours and all that. So it tell you the return that you receive. The marginal product will tell you the return that you receive. Let's say if you ask people like to hire to work more hours, what would be the contribution that you receive, for each of the work, the hours, right? How many hours you should hire in total? Well, technically you might want to take a look at the wage. If we think that in general, since firm is just like a firm. We're not talking about monopolist yet. And if you guys still remember, monopolist is when you only have one firm, hiring for the workers, If you just think about like one particular firm in competitive market, the firm cannot control the wage, right? Wage is something that the market gives to the firm. Let's say it's equal to W or something. So the firm will be able to identify let's say if this is the wage, what should be the hiring point? How many hours should the firm ask, like from workers, or how many hours should the firm hire? Which one? With the with the W is like the hourly wage, okay? So if the W is the hourly wage, what do you need to ask yourself? Do you look at the marginal product or you look at the average product? It's actually somewhat like the same as your microeconomic tools, actually. Like same thing, same analogy, same concepts about thinking whether or not you would like to produce something. If you don't remember, if you already forget about the input market or forget about capital labor already, you can even think about a product. This is exactly the same graph for like a product, for like just one product, Let's say instead of W, you say that, well, this is, by the way, marginal product of labor, right? But it's the same as, let's say, just think about like marginal return from like producing something, and then you look at the cost of producing it, and then you look at the return that you receive from it, right? Usually in economics, we would like the marginal cost equal to marginal benefit, right? That's kind of the standard concept in economics, Marginal cost has to be equal to marginal benefits at optimum, because you look at the point where the last unit that you produce, or in this case, it will be the last hour that you hire, should have the cost of that last unit equal to the benefit that you receive from the last unit that you hire, right? That's like marginal cost equal to marginal benefits, same thing. So optimal hiring will always be the same stuff, Marginal cost equal to marginal benefits. That class concept, But what is marginal cost and what is marginal benefit? That's just the only thing that might make this a bit different from before. Just the application of the concept of marginal cost and marginal benefit into this scenario. That's the only thing that make it differ from the rest of the other part of microeconomics. But it uses the same concept. Still marginal cost equal to marginal benefits. What is the marginal cost of employment, of like 1 hour? It will be the wage, right? So marginal cost is the wage. Because if you hire 1 more hours, this is how much you have to pay, right? So what would be the marginal benefit? Marginal benefit would be the value of the products that you can receive, right? Oh, actually, my bad. Now I know why. What's wrong with this graph? Actually, I forgot I should draw another graph first before I put in W. You see the y-axis over here is the output, right? Output, the unit of output is in unit, right? In piece, It's not in monetary term yet. So I cannot really draw a W right here yet because it's not the same unit, right? I mean, I have to translate this, marginal product, average product, and like output and, number of hours into another graph that has the y-axis being monetary value first, before I can put W on here. W here is a bit too early, You can put W right here because W is supposed to have monetary units, right? Kind of like W equal to baht, something along that line. But output doesn't have baht as a unit, Output this is like piece, how many pieces you can produce. So I need to draw one more thing first. Which actually looks exactly identical. Just have different axes.
MC ได้ MC พูด
So instead of marginal product, average product, whatever, now we have value of marginal product and value of average product instead. By the way, just to distinguish that it is the value of marginal product, average product of labor, of employment, of employment. So if you do hours, or if you like to do worker, fine, just change into like L or something, still same graph. But this one will be in monetary units, just for the sake of making it easier, right, as dollar. So that's a monetary unit, or baht, if you like. Either one, fine. Okay. So how can you compare this? Well, this is just translation of this graph. It's just a translation of this graph into monetary value right here. So it's not very difficult, right? This graph tells you the thing in units, like in piece, the how many pieces of output. So if you want to know the value, you just multiply the number of output with the price, right? So it's not being fancy, You multiply this with price of the output. So you technically multiply this marginal product with the price of the output. You will get the value of marginal product because you can tell now that, okay, if this person can produce, let's say 6.5 units of output, how can that translate into monetary terms, Just multiply 6.5 with how much it is, right? Well, per piece. And you get the total how much it is for 6.5 units. So it's just that when P is equal to the price of product, product price, 1 unit of product, how much it costs. How much it's worth, not the cost. How much it's worth. That's the funny thing about looking at firm. When firm is a customer, instead of you say like how much is the product cost you, it's not costing you anymore. It's actually earning you money. So you have to look at the worth of the product, how much it's worth, instead of like saying how much it costs. But it's the same number. So P is the price of the product. You multiply the marginal product, of the contribution, additional contribution of employment, to the production, and you multiply it with the price of production, and you end up with marginal value of the marginal productivity, marginal product of labor, value of marginal product of labor. So you have this. Now I can put in W.เอียงเล็กน้อย sorry นะคะ straight again like that. Well, you can make it more straight again than what it is there. So you have the view, and you have that, marginal benefit equal to marginal cost, right? That's optimization conditions, of the firm. Which level should the firm hire, for the labor, or how many hours should the firm hire the workers? So let's just look at marginal benefit and marginal cost. We already say, so marginal cost would be equal to the wage, right? So if you have to pay this much for this for 1 hour, that would be your cost of having worker work 1 more hours. You have to pay this much more. So for pay W or wage, if it asks the worker to work 1 more hour, but what would be the benefit of having 1 more hours of labor? 1 more hour of employment, what is the benefit of that? Well, if you add 1 more hours of employment, right, you get this, right, marginal product, of employment, marginal product of that additional hours. And you want to find the value, you already did it by right here. You get the value of marginal products. That tells you the value of each additional hours, that you can receive by adding more hours. So what is the additional value? That would be the benefit that you receive from hiring 1 more worker. No, sorry, for hiring 1 more hours. I kept going back to worker because my company is always workers. Right, fine. Okay. So if you hire 1 more hours, you will receive VMP right here. So marginal benefit is equal to VMP, right, of E, which is our that workers spend. So you only need to equate between value of marginal product, and the wage, the cost that you pay, right? So where should it be? Which point? We have 2 points, actually. What should be the optimal level? What would be the optimal level? A or B? Because B, right? Why won't you produce at A? What's wrong with A? I mean, you can produce at A if you want, but it's actually not profit maximization. Actually, it's not the how you call it? Yeah, it's not a profit maximization. That's true. But it's also not the optimal choice that you should pick, because if you look at the condition of marginal benefit equal to marginal cost, you say that you want to stop right here because this is because after this, like after marginal benefit equal to marginal cost, the cost might be higher than the benefit, right? If your marginal cost higher than your marginal benefit, you will want to stop before that. You want to produce until the marginal benefit equal to marginal cost. But what is implied in that marginal benefit equal to marginal cost is that before that, marginal benefit is higher than marginal cost. So you continue to produce, you continue to hire more. So you actually looking at the location where before this, marginal benefit is higher than marginal cost. So it has to be the MV or the VMP higher than W, right? So the point right here, before this point, the benefit is right here. It's higher than the cost of hiring, one more hours. So this situation is when you maximize the benefit that you can receive. Because before this, benefit is higher than cost. After this, you don't want it anymore because it's the cost higher than the cost, the red line higher than the benefit, the black one. What happened here? Here is the part where before this, the cost is higher than the benefit, right? The marginal cost, which is W, is higher than your value of marginal products, The marginal benefit is lower than the marginal cost. If you produce here or you decide to hire at this point, it's actually the point where you probably do the minimum. Instead of maximum, you get a minimum instead. So you have to be careful a little bit, not just, you have to have a line, it's intersect, so you're gonna pick marginal benefit equal to marginal cost, You have to look at the situation at each of the points, At this point, before this, the marginal cost is higher than marginal benefit. In fact, if you produce more, if you decide to hire more and produce additional product, and you hire more hours, you actually move into the territory where the benefit of hiring additional hours is higher than the cost of hiring, So benefit higher than cost, you happy, right? You like it, You like this area actually. Benefit higher than cost, And you will stop right here because after this, additional benefit is lower than the additional cost that you receive. So this will be the optimal choice that you pick, the optimal hiring level, because it maximizes your return. It's where your total benefits, when you find that minus the total cost is the highest. And by the way, if you really want to push it, it's right here. Like the profit thingy, that you would like to call, it will be right here. Although by the way, I want to avoid using the word profit because it's not exactly profit. We are not talking about, let's say we are not talking about profit maximization problem. So the area in here are more like the accumulative benefit that you receive from hiring the workers. It's not the profit from the product, right? Because it's like, because it's not really a profit maximization problem. That's the thing. It's not exactly a profit maximization problem. It doesn't talk about the demand of the product. It doesn't say anything at all about like whether or not you have to reduce the price if you produce more and all those stuff, which normally you have to worry about, right? So this is the different kind of problem than profit maximization. But it's fine if you're looking at this and saying it's a competitive market, because the term in competitive market means that price doesn't change. So you don't have to worry about price change throughout the time, throughout the increase in output, and also because you are so small in competitive markets, wage doesn't change as well, So the cost, intervally the marginal cost stay the same, You have your own variable marginal, not variable, value of marginal products, because it depends on your own production functions, but you don't have to worry about the price because price doesn't change in competitive market. But just want to say it's kind of like it's not exactly profit in all the cases. Just it can be if you look at competitive market, but in general, not necessary because you already seen other type of markets that price change, or weight change depending on the situation, right? So by the way, what would be the supply area? Actually, by drawing this graph, you in fact can point out the supply side. Oh no, the supply, sorry, my bad. The demand. I kept saying supply because I kept thinking about like the firms and production of the firms. But in fact, it's a demand. Which part of this whole graph is the demand of labor? How you look at the demand, at least in short run, by the way, because we fix all the capital, right? How can you identify the demand? I was saying that, well, if you have W, you can pinpoint the exact optimal level of hiring, right? So with a specific W, you probably can tell right away what would be the level of hours that you would like to hire, But if we don't have that, which part is the demand? Or at least, which part is the hiring portion, the point where it's possible for the firm to hire, given different level of wage. Wage can be so many things, right? It's outside the firm control. Which part should be the firm hiring portion? Well, actually, you already see from here on which line the firm consider the hiring decision. That might be a good start. Did the firm look at the average product? Like, no. The firm doesn't look at the average product, right? The firm look at the marginal product, right? So at least it must be on the marginal product part, right? This is when it's super easy. You might feel, what are you talking about? It's so easy. So which part of this value of marginal product line that you can consider it as a supply of the demand curve for firm hiring? There's only two parts, by the way. Well, there's the whole line. I'll just ask whether it can it be the whole line? That's all I ask. Can it be the whole marginal product, the value of marginal product? No, right? No, otherwise I won't ask, right? So if I ask, it means it can only be some part of the line. Which part of the line should be the hiring line? It's a downward sloping part of the line, right? Okay. There's a lot of downward sloping. Can I do the whole downward sloping side? Can it be from here to here? Or should I just do this? Or should I do this? Now it's not very readable anymore. Which part? Does it have to only be the red one? You know, like economics actually is very basic. It's so logical, like you don't actually need a lot of brain to think about it. But you just need a bit of logic, that's all. So what's the difference between the red line and the blue line? Oh, not, well, you don't see blue anymore. The red line and the black inch thingy right here. Yeah. The red thingy and the black thingy. Yeah. This one is when the average product is lower, right? This one is when average product is higher. Should you produce right here? I should ask, can you produce right here? Well, physically can or not, well, you can because you already have the marginal product line right there. As in, like, technically you can, but is it making any sense economically to produce right here? Why not? You guys remember like the supply curve, you know, that you guys did before? Way back in like micro to a bit sometime now ago. The only thing you need to worry about not supplying is when. When you run deficit, right? When you actually make a loss. Yeah. If you lost money by producing something, that's when you feel that you don't want to do it. You know? Particularly if you have kind of like an average cost of production. You know, when you factor in the fixed cost in there, and you say that, well, fine, in terms of like finding the optimal level of production, you might look at marginal cost and marginal benefits, right? But if you want to decide whether or not you actually would like to produce, you know, you might want to look at the average cost actually. You know, average cost will determine which part you want to produce and which part you don't want to produce, because you don't want to produce less than average cost, right? As in, you produce a part where when you sell it, the price that you receive is lower than your average cost, because that's typically like you're running a loss. Why bother producing it at all, right? So that will determine the part of your supply, you know, when you look at firms. But right here, do you have the cost curve? Oh, the cost curve is a straight W line right here, right? That's like your cost, you know. So yeah, sure, you won't be producing anything below this because the wage is higher than the benefit that you receive. However, if you look at just, you know, the demand curve in general, you know, you're not talking about like where exactly you would like to produce or you would like to hire people, you know, you don't have to worry about anything else, right? Because you don't have the cost curve to worry you, you know. So in terms of all the possible points that you can have the production, you know, you actually can go for the whole line right here. It's fine. It just say that you can choose any point on here. It's okay as long as you consider the marginal cost. You know, you have to find the marginal cost, and you can determine later, you know, which part you want to hide exactly. But anyway, seems okay, at least logically right now. You know, it doesn't have anything yet because we don't introduce some other parts that may limit, you know, the possibility of firm hiring at this location. So why not in this area? Why not in the increasing part? So typically the answer is the downward sloping part of the marginal product curve can be the, you know, the demand curve for the firm, right? The downward sloping marginal product of employment, you know, marginal product of labor, you know. But why not the increasing part or the increasing slope portion of the marginal product of employment? You know? Well, technically it's the same thing as what we see right here. You know, as in if you want to identify, so what would be the actual point that you would like to produce, you know, and you draw like a W, a wedge line, right? You can draw the wedge line anywhere you like, you know. Your answer still be something along this line. You will never pick anything over here because at any given point over here, it's the situation when if you actually produce a bit more, you know, you could benefit more than the cost, you know. So why stop right here, you know? You actually can do better. So you will never do the upward sloping portion of the marginal product part, you know. You will only do the downward sloping portion, you know, because every time that you have the point that you can choose between the upward sloping part and the downward sloping part, you always pick the downward sloping part anyway, because that's when you can maximize the benefit that you can receive. You know, so this part or anything that cut with the W or the other W in the future, you know, you will never pick it anyway, because it doesn't make any sense to produce along right here. You can do better by going in the downward sloping direction. Right. So that's getting the demand, you know. So now you have the demand curve right there. At least in the short run, you know. Well, we'll come back and look at the long run, you know. A little bit, it's gonna be more like equation each. Now, it's a bit more difficult to draw pictures in the long run, okay? Yeah, and then we'll look at just some scenario or some case, some issues in the labor market that can be explained with labor economics, you know, and then we will finish up the part of labor economics. Yeah, that's it. Okay, I'll see you guys next Tuesday.